The Túpac Amaru Rebellion Massacre, 1781. Spain's bloody revenge in Peru. In the heart of the Andes, a storm was brewing. The Spanish Empire had ruled Peru with an iron grip for centuries, forcing indigenous people into brutal servitude. Heavy taxes, forced labor, and unrelenting cruelty fueled a deep, simmering rage. And in 1780, one man dared to rise against it. His name was Túpac Amaru II. Born Jose Gabriel Condorcanqui, he was a man of both privilege and oppression. A direct descendant of the last Inca emperor, he had wealth and status, yet he could not ignore the suffering of his people. The Spanish system crushed the indigenous population under unbearable burdens. Men were ripped from their families and sent to work in the silver mines, where many never returned. Entire villages were left in poverty while the Spanish elite grew richer. Túpac Amaru II had seen enough. He would become the voice of the voiceless, the leader of a rebellion unlike any Spain had faced before. On November 4th, 1780, the rebellion began with a single execution. Túpac Amaru II captured Antonio de Arriaga, a ruthless Spanish official known for his cruelty. In front of a crowd, he sentenced Arriaga to death. The Spanish officer pleaded for his life, but there was no mercy. The execution was swift, and with it, the first blow against Spanish rule was struck. News spread quickly, from the mountains to the valleys. Indigenous communities and Creole sympathizers joined the cause. Túpac Amaru II led his forces into battle, armed with spears, clubs, and bows. At first, the Spanish underestimated them. But as towns fell one by one, it became clear that this was more than just a local revolt. This was a full-scale indigenous uprising. The battles were brutal. The rebels fought with raw determination, ambushing Spanish convoys and setting fire to colonial strongholds. Spanish muskets fired relentlessly, cutting down waves of warriors, but the rebels kept coming. Arrows rained down from the hills, impaling soldiers before they could reload. The sound of steel against steel echoed as swords clashed in vicious close combat. Blood soaked the earth, the air thick with the scent of burning wood and gunpowder. Túpac Amaru II himself fought on the front lines, rallying his warriors. He was not just a leader, he was a symbol, a beacon of hope in the fight against Spanish tyranny. His forces seized key territories, disrupting trade and communication lines. The Spanish viceroy grew desperate. The empire could not afford to lose Peru. Reinforcements arrived, well-trained and heavily armed. The tide began to turn. The Spanish army retaliated with merciless force. Villages suspected of supporting the rebellion were burned to the ground. Women and children were massacred as a warning to others. Yet still, the rebels did not surrender. The battles raged on, but supplies dwindled. And then, the unthinkable happened. Túpac Amaru II was betrayed. A faction within his ranks, lured by the promise of clemency, revealed his location to the Spanish. He was ambushed, captured, and dragged in chains to Cusco. The people watched in horror as their leader, bloodied and beaten, was paraded through the streets. But the Spanish were not satisfied with his capture. They wanted to send a message written in pain and death. On May 18, 1781, in the Plaza de Armas of Cusco, the execution began. Túpac Amaru II's family and closest allies were brought before him. One by one, they were executed, his wife, his eldest son, his generals. Their cries echoed across the square. Yet Túpac Amaru II did not look away. He did not beg. He did not break. Then, the Spanish attempted to quarter him. His limbs were tied to 4 horses, each one ordered to pull in a different direction. The executioners expected a swift end, but Túpac Amaru II did not die. His body resisted, his limbs refusing to tear apart. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Some whispered that he was protected by the spirits of his ancestors. The Spanish, humiliated by their failure, resorted to beheading him instead. The blade fell. His head was displayed for all to see. The rebellion, they thought, had been crushed. But Spain was not done. They unleashed a wave of terror across Peru. Villages were burned, thousands were executed. Any trace of the rebellion was erased. The empire had won, or so they believed, but Spain was not done. They unleashed a wave of terror across Peru. Villages were burned, thousands were executed. Any trace of the rebellion was erased. The empire had won, or so they believed, because Túpac Amaru II's death was not the end. His name became a legend, whispered in secret among the oppressed. His defiance inspired future uprisings, and in time, Spain's grip on South America weakened. Decades later, the fires of revolution burned again, and one by one, the Spanish colonies broke free. Túpac Amaru II did not live to see Peru's independence, but his sacrifice planted the seed of freedom. He became more than a man. He became a symbol of resistance. His story is not just history. It is a reminder, a warning. Empires rise and fall, but the fight for justice never dies. If you found this story powerful, don't let history be forgotten. Share this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more hidden history. Let's keep these stories alive.